The patch contained approximately 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic, weighing around 80,000 metric tons. That's equivalent to 500 jumbo jets made entirely of garbage, floating in the middle of the ocean. Researchers identified objects from the 1970s, toys from the 1980s, bottles with labels in a dozen languages, each piece tracing back to a specific failure. The plastic fragments weren't just inert pollution, they were toxic sponges. It's 1997. Captain Charles Moore is sailing from Hawaii back to California. He decides to cut through the North Pacific Gyre, a part of the ocean sailors usually avoid. Dead winds, slow currents, nothing out here but water. Except that's not what he finds. For 7 days straight, every time Moore looks over the rail, he sees plastic. Bottles, bags, fishing nets, toothbrushes, toys, an endless floating graveyard of human garbage stretching to the horizon in every direction. He has just discovered something that should not exist. A plastic island bigger than Texas, swirling in the heart of the Pacific Ocean. This is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I'm Charles Denyer, and this is Threat Level Red, where we expose the threats, the attacks, the operations, and the dangers that shape our world and threaten our security. Today's episode, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the floating landfill bigger than Texas.
Welcome to Threat Level Red, a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. Every week, Charles brings his real-world expertise to the front lines of America's most pressing threats. Cyber attacks, extremist networks, rogue states, terrorism, economic instability, systemic breakdowns, and so much more. From the digital battleground to the streets of America, no threat is left uncovered. No spin, no filters, just intel.
To understand how we created a floating landfill that's even bigger than the state of Texas, right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you need to know three things. First, the North Pacific subtropical gyre is a massive system of rotating ocean currents between Hawaii and California. Think of it as a slow-motion toilet bowl that never flushes. Currents spiral inward, trapping anything that enters. For millions of years, this collected organic matter that would decompose. Then we invented plastic, a material specifically designed never to break down. We've been dumping it into the ocean for decades, for which the gyre became a permanent collection zone for humanity's throwaway culture. Second, we're not talking about a solid island you can walk across. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a diffuse soup of debris spanning 1.6 million square kilometers. Satellite images show mostly empty ocean because 94% of the pollution consists of microplastics, fragments smaller than 5 millimeters suspended throughout the water column. You wouldn't see it from a boat. You'd sail through it for days, but scoop up water anywhere in that zone, and you'd find plastic confetti mixed with plankton at concentrations 6 times higher than the plankton itself. Third, here's the thing nobody understood until it was too late. Ocean gyres don't just trap plastic, they concentrate it, and they act like slow-motion blenders grinding larger debris into smaller and smaller pieces through wave action and UV radiation. Every water bottle that enters becomes hundreds of thousands of microplastic fragments. Every fishing net becomes millions of toxic fibers. The patch isn't just growing, it's multiplying. And once plastic enters a gyre, it can circulate for decades, even centuries, breaking down but never disappearing. Now, here's what happened when we finally got a closer look at what we have actually created. The true scale of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch remained hidden until 2018, when the Ocean Cleanup Foundation conducted the most comprehensive survey ever attempted. Using aircraft equipped with specialized sensors and a fleet of boats dragging sampling nets, they spent months mapping the debris field. What they found was worse than predicted. The patch contained approximately 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic, weighing around 80,000 metric tons. That's equivalent to 500 jumbo jets made entirely of garbage, floating in the middle of the ocean. But here's what shocked researchers. 46% of the mass was not consumer waste. It was fishing gear, abandoned nets, called ghost gear, some spanning hundreds of meters, still fishing autonomously decades after being discarded. These nets trap and kill everything: dolphins, sea turtles, sharks, seabirds, in an endless cycle of death. The composition told a story of systemic failure. Researchers identified objects from the 1970s, toys from the 1980s, bottles with labels in a dozen languages, each piece tracing back to a specific failure. Inadequate waste infrastructure in developing coastal regions, illegal dumping by commercial fishing fleets, tsunami debris from Japan's 2011 disaster, and millions of tons of single-use packaging from consumer economies, just like us right here in the United States. But here's what they didn't know what would happen next. When they analyzed the microplastics under microscopes, they discovered something terrifying. The plastic fragments weren't just inert pollution, they were toxic sponges. Microplastics absorb persistent organic pollutants like DDT, PCBs, and other chemicals banned decades ago, yet are still present in seawater. Furthermore, concentrations on plastic surfaces were up to 1 million times higher than surrounding water. Every fish that ingests these particles becomes contaminated, and those fish get eaten by bigger fish, which get eaten by bigger fish again, which end up on dinner plates all around the world, and yes, including your very own kitchen. The global food chain wasn't just being disrupted, it was and is being poisoned. Also, and this is important to note, despite popular images of towering islands of floating trash, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is largely invisible to the naked eye. Its debris is spread so thinly, averaging just a few plastic particles per cubic meter, that it cannot be detected by satellites and is rarely noticed even by ships, divers, or fishermen passing through the area. Rather than forming solid masses, the pitch is a vast diluted field of pollution made up mostly of microplastics, tiny fragments often no larger than a fingernail and frequently microscopic, suspended through the upper layers of the ocean.
So the Great Pacific Garbage Patch really is a misnomer. It's not a patch. It's not a mass. It's nothing you can see from space. All these things once heard. But in fact, it's just a giant soup, a gyre, a whirlpool of plastic.
When the Ocean Cleanup published their 2018 findings, the environmental community absolutely erupted. The sheer scale, 3 times larger than France, dominated headlines globally. Within days, major retailers, including Walmart and Kroger, announced accelerated phase-outs of single-user plastic bags. The European Union fast-tracked legislation banning single-use plastics. The UN Environment Program declared ocean plastic pollution a planetary crisis. But announcements aren't action. The plastic, well, it kept flowing and flowing. The ecological consequences are catastrophic and accelerating. Over 700 marine species have now been documented interacting with ocean plastic. Sea turtles have a 50% mortality rate when ingesting just 14 pieces of plastic. Their digestive system just shuts down. Seabirds mistake floating debris for food, filling their stomachs with bottle caps and cigarette lighters instead of fish, leading to slow starvation. Albatross chicks are found dead, their bodies packed with plastics fed to them by their parents, who could not distinguish trash from prey. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The economic damage extends far beyond environmentalism. The fishing industry loses hundreds of millions of dollars annually to damaged equipment and reduced catch in plastic-affected zones. Case in point, tourism economies in many Pacific Island nations have steadily declined as beaches become burial grounds for debris. And cleanup costs exceed $13 billion per year globally, and we're not even making a dent.
The plastic's spread out. It's under the surface. It's not an easy thing to mop up. If it were a garbage island, I think it probably would be much easier to clean up.
The Ocean Cleanup deployed its first large-scale collection system in 2018, a roughly 600-meter floating boom designed to concentrate plastic using the natural currents of the North Pacific Gyre. Early versions failed to retain debris and required multiple redesigns. A subsequent iteration, known as System 002, began operating in 2021 and successfully removed tens of tons of plastic during its initial campaign, eventually extracting hundreds of tons over multiple years. That progress, while real, highlights a sobering reality. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is estimated to contain around 80,000 metric tons of plastic in total, the result of decades of accumulation. Even at today's improved removal rates, cleanup efforts are addressing only a tiny fraction of what already exists, let alone what continues to enter the ocean each year. Cleanup alone cannot solve the problem. It's less like draining the ocean and more like trying to bail out the Titanic with a teaspoon while the leak remains wide open. Here's the damage we cannot easily undo. Microplastics are now embedded throughout the marine food web, from plankton at the base to the largest predators in the ocean. Studies consistently find plastic ingestion in nearly all sea turtles examined, and plastic contamination or entanglement has been documented across many whale species worldwide. Microplastics have also been detected in human blood, placentas, and lung tissue, confirming that these particles are no longer confined to the environment. They are entering our bodies. Researchers estimate that people may ingest several grams of plastic each week through seafood, drinking water, and even airborne particles, a rough figure often compared to the weight of a credit card. While the exact amount varies by diet and location, the conclusion is unmistakable. We are now consuming the byproducts of our own waste stream. The patch has created dead zones where biodiversity collapses, and these zones expand outward from the Gyre center as currents disperse microplastics across the Pacific. By 2030, it is forecasted that every major ocean basin will have a comparable accumulation zone. The Atlantic, Indian, and Southern Oceans are developing their own garbage patches. We've industrialized ocean pollution. Here's the part that's hardest to shake. Document-based investigations and reports indicate that major industry players were fully aware, going back decades, that plastic waste would persist in the environment and that recycling faced serious technical and economic limits. Many of the records cited by investigators, they're not classified at all. Some have been publicly available in research archives, but the larger allegation remains explosive. Despite what internal discussions suggested, the public messaging often portrayed recycling as a viable, scalable solution. The result echoes a familiar pattern. Industries accused of managing perception while the damage compounds. And so far, the pushback has largely played out through investigations and civil litigation, not criminal prosecutions of top executives. And today, the flow continues. Estimates vary, but researchers agree that millions of metric tons of plastic enter the ocean each year, carried by rivers, runoff, and coastal waste streams. That influx is often described as the equivalent of a garbage truck's worth of plastic entering the ocean every minute, a shorthand for a problem measured on an industrial scale. In the North Pacific, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch continues to accumulate plastic, with surveys showing deep increases in both the number and total mass of debris over recent decades. Despite international agreements, UN resolutions, and the emergence of cleanup technologies, the plastic pollution is still outpacing our ability to remove it. The patch isn't a solid island, remember, but the concentration of plastic keeps growing, a visible symptom of a system that remains fundamentally broken. So, what really happened here? This wasn't a failure of technology or knowledge. Scientists predicted ocean accumulation zones in 1988, 9 years before the discovery. We knew this was coming. This was a failure of political will, international cooperation, and corporate accountability operating all at once. Now remember, no single nation owns the ocean gyres. They exist in international waters where maritime law has no enforcement teeth. Countries can sign agreements, but there's no mechanism to penalize violators. It's the tragedy of the commons playing out in real time. Everyone benefits from using the ocean as a dump. Nobody pays the full cost. Also, the economics incentivize pollution. Single-use plastic is cheap. Designing sustainable alternatives, that costs more. Developing nations lack waste infrastructure. Companies externalize environmental costs onto future generations. Until we pay the price in true cost, cleanup, health impacts, ecosystem collapse, the math favors continued pollution. Furthermore, consumer behavior scales to catastrophe, and that's just simple math we have to admit and cannot ignore. One plastic bottle that I throw away today seems harmless. Multiplied by 8 billion people, and you get the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Individual choices compound into systemic threats when multiplied across populations and decades. And here's the thing. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not the threat, it's the symptom. The real threat is our fundamental dependence on a material we've designed to last forever, but use once and throw away. Every piece of plastic ever manufactured still exists somewhere on this planet, in landfills, in oceans, in the bodies of animals, or in our own blood. Plastic production, it's not slowing, it's accelerating. Under current projections, global plastic output could triple by 2050, backed by hundreds of billions of dollars in new petrochemical investments and powerful industry lobbyists. If these trends continue, scientists warn that ocean plastic could rival or even exceed the mass of fish, a projection that underscores the scale of what's unfolding. This is the reality now. Disposable plastics don't go away. The currents remember, and the oceans of our planet, they pay the price. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Charles Denyer. This is Threat Level Red.
Threat Level Red is a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. For more information, visit charlesdenyer.com to learn more about current and upcoming podcasts and episodes, current and future book publications, professional services offered by Charles, and much more. All opinions expressed are those of the host and do not reflect the official positions of any government agency, military branch, or national security organization.